Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast. Have you ever felt like completely trapped between two terrifying IT realities?
Oh, I think anyone in tech knows exactly what you mean by that.
Right, because on one side, you have your legacy system.
Yeah.
And this is that absolute dinosaur of a platform that, somehow keeps your business running.
Yeah, the one nobody wants to touch because it might break.
Exactly. It's so inflexible that asking it to do anything new feels like asking a typewriter to send an email.
That is a painfully accurate comparison.
But then, on the other side, you have this prospect of a massive generic cloud migration. And attempting that often feels less like an upgrade and more like trying to rebuild your car's engine while you are actively driving down the highway at, 80 miles an hour.
Yeah, it's a staggering operational risk. I mean, it is the ultimate modern business dilemma.
Because you have to modernize just to stay relevant.
Right. If you don't, your competitors will outpace you. But ripping out your foundational systems to achieve that modernization, well, that could easily bring your daily operations to a complete standstill.
You're stuck trying to innovate without breaking the things that actually generate your revenue.
Which is exactly why businesses are looking for a third option.
And that third option is why we're doing a deep dive into our source material today. We are looking at a truly comprehensive ultimate guide published on smartkeys.org by Felix Römer.
Yeah, it's titled Industry Cloud Solutions, Customizing SaaS for Every Sector.
Our mission for this deep dive is to act as your insider strategy session. We are going to unpack how you can modernize your business, leverage cutting-edge tools, and do it without tearing out your operational foundation.
It's a really critical roadmap for anyone making IT decisions right now.
Okay, so let's unpack this concept of an industry cloud platform, or an ICP. Think about traditional cloud computing, like renting a massive empty warehouse.
Okay, I like this analogy.
You have all the space you could possibly need, but you have to build the shelves, install the lighting, hire the security guards, and, wire the alarm systems completely by yourself.
Which takes a massive amount of time and engineering talent.
Right. But industry clouds, on the other hand, are like moving into a fully furnished, high-tech facility that was designed specifically for your exact business model.
Yes. And the technical mechanics of that pre-furnished concept are what really make this a fundamental shift in enterprise architecture.
How so?
Well, when we talk about an industry cloud platform, we're not just talking about raw data storage. The platform bundles 3 layers of computing that businesses traditionally had to, stitch together themselves.
Okay, so what are the layers?
You have infrastructure as a service, which is your raw computing power and servers. You have platform as a service, which is the environment where developers build applications, and you have software as a service, the actual programs you use.
So it's the whole stack in one box.
Exactly. But the critical differentiator is that an ICP layers on standardized, sector-specific data models and workflow templates straight out of the box.
Okay, wait, I want to pause on sector-specific data models because that sounds like a phrase a vendor just throws into a pitch deck to sound fancy. What does that actually mean in practice?
Fair point. So, a data model is essentially the universal language a computer system uses to understand what a piece of information actually is.
Like how it reads a spreadsheet.
Sort of. In a generic cloud, a database just sees text and numbers. You have to hire engineers to teach the database that this specific string of numbers represents, say, a financial transaction or a shipping manifest or patient's medical history.
Oh, I see. So you have to define everything from scratch.
Right. But an industry cloud platform comes pre-programmed with that vocabulary. If you are a hospital, the database already knows the complex structure of a patient record.
Well, wow.
Yeah, it already knows how to link that record to a pharmacy request and how to securely route it to billing. You don't have to build that underlying logic.
That saves an unbelievable amount of time. And looking at the numbers from the source, businesses are catching on to this really fast.
The adoption rates are actually wild.
Yeah, the guide notes that 39% of enterprises have already started their adoption process, and another 14% are currently running pilot programs. So we are looking at more than half the market making a move.
And the trajectory is incredibly steep. The projection shows usage skyrocketing from under 15% adoption back in 2023 to over 70% by 2027.
Wait, 70%? That is a massive jump in just a few years.
It is. We are essentially watching the standardization of enterprise IT. These platforms are evolving into an integration fabric.
What do you mean by integration fabric?
Well, they're designed to seamlessly link massive enterprise resource planning systems, like, say, the complex SAP or Oracle deployments a company might have relied on for a decade, directly with top cloud service providers.
Ah, so they act as a sort of universal translator between your old reliable systems and new cloud applications.
Precisely. They bridge that gap without you having to code the bridge yourself.
Okay, here is where I have to play the skeptic, though.
Go for it.
If we are bundling infrastructure, the software layers, the pre-built data models, and the integration tools all into one massive platform, aren't we just building a brand new IT monolith?
That is a very common fear.
Because 10 years from now, isn't a business just going to be locked into a rigid, inescapable ecosystem all over again?
It is a vital concern, absolutely. But the difference really comes down to how the underlying architecture is assembled.
Okay, explain that.
A monolith is tightly coupled. It is poured like a single block of concrete. If you want to change the plumbing, you have to break the concrete.
Right, which breaks everything else.
Exactly. But industry cloud platforms are fundamentally modular. They rely on pre-built application programming interfaces, or APIs, which act like universal plug-and-play adapters.
So it's more like Lego bricks instead of concrete.
Yes. You are assembling highly curated building blocks, not buying a single solid chunk of code. You can swap out a specific customer service module or upgrade an analytics engine without having to shut down or rewrite the entire central database.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And that modularity also seems to be the key to one of the most surprising features mentioned in the guide.
The Gen AI modernization.
Yes, the automated modernization of legacy code using generative AI. Because I always pictured legacy modernization as, a room full of developers painfully reading 40-year-old code and manually typing it out into a modern language.
That manual translation used to be the only way, and honestly, it took years and cost a fortune.
But now the AI does it.
Yeah? Now, the Gen AI tools built into these platforms can read that decades-old legacy code, say, an old inventory management logic written in COBOL, understand the business rules behind it, and automatically translate it into modern cloud-native microservices.
That is mind-blowing.
It drastically accelerates the time to value because the AI is doing the heavy lifting of the translation. It allows human developers to simply review and optimize the output instead of typing it from scratch.
So if the platform can understand and translate complex legacy logic, it makes sense that it can handle incredibly complex industry rules, too. The text dives heavily into how these platforms manage sector-specific realities, and I noticed a recurring theme. They all seem to rely on real-time anomaly detection and strict data routing.
They do. In the financial sector, for example, the guide highlights pre-configured fraud models.
Which ties back to what we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
The financial sector is a perfect illustration of why those pre-programmed data models matter.
Exactly. When a bank adopts a financial ICE, they are turning on a system that already possesses a deep understanding of what anomalous financial behavior looks like.
So it's not starting from zero.
Not at all. It is analyzing transaction velocity, location data, and behavioral patterns right out of the box. The bank isn't spending 18 months building a fraud detection algorithm from scratch.
They are just tuning a sophisticated engine that is already running.
Exactly.
And the underlying mechanism of that secure data routing is exactly what healthcare needs, just applied differently. Because a financial platform filters for fraud, while a healthcare platform filters for privacy.
That's a great way to put it.
The guide details how healthcare ICPs provide seamless electronic health record, or EHR, integrations. It already knows how to connect a telemedicine portal to a patient's EHR without exposing that data to the broader internet.
Right, it forces the data to travel through predetermined secure pathways.
But what about physical industries? Because the guide mentions manufacturing and energy too.
Yeah, so when you move away from data-heavy industries like finance and healthcare and look at physical industries, the platforms adapt to ingest physical data. They process massive streams of IoT signals.
And IoT stands for the Internet of Things, right? Like equipping physical machines with internet-connected sensors.
Exactly. So instead of a database tracking invoices, it's tracking the physical vibration of a robotic arm on an assembly line.
Oh, wow. Okay. And what does it do with that vibration data?
In manufacturing, the platform analyzes those vibration or temperature sensors to perform predictive maintenance. It recognizes the subtle data patterns that indicate machine component is going to fail, say, 3 weeks before it actually breaks.
So the manufacturer can fix it before it becomes a disaster.
Right. They can replace a $10 part during a scheduled shift change rather than dealing with a catastrophic breakdown that halts the entire supply chain.
That is huge for efficiency. And it says here the energy sector uses this too.
Yeah, in the energy sector, an ICP uses those same real-time ingestion capabilities for intelligent grid management. It balances the unpredictable spikes in renewable energy like solar or wind against real-time consumption demands.
And then it automatically routes surplus power to battery storage.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Let's bring this to the consumer level with retail, though.
Okay, yeah, retail's a very relatable use case.
The guide emphasizes omnichannel personalization engines. Now, omnichannel is one of those buzzwords that gets thrown around constantly,
Oh, absolutely.
but as I understand it from the source, an industry cloud makes it possible by eliminating data silos.
That's the core of it.
Because if I buy a pair of shoes online, return them in a physical store, and then open the brand's mobile app a week later, the app shouldn't recommend those exact same shoes to me again.
Right, which happens all the time with older systems.
Exactly. But the industry cloud centralizes that customer profile, so
Hmm.
every touch point is referencing the exact same data model in real time.
And what ties all of these distinct use cases together, whether it is a retail app, a factory sensor, or a hospital record, is the underlying compliance engine.
Oh, the compliance aspect is fascinating.
For heavily regulated industries, this is arguably the most critical value proposition. These platforms map your specific regulatory scope directly to built-in technical controls.
So they align automatically with comprehensive frameworks.
Yes. For example, they align with NIST, which is the gold standard playbook for cybersecurity defense in the US, or PCI DSS, which is the mandatory security standard for handling credit card information.
It's all just baked in.
Exactly. The platform embeds reusable control libraries, enforces data encryption by default, and maintains tamper-proof audit trails without requiring human intervention.
Okay, so let me see if I have this right. Instead of treating compliance like an auditor who shows up at the end of the year with a clipboard to catch your mistakes.
Which is always a stressful time.
Right. Instead of that, this is like having a built-in spell checker. It physically prevents you from making the compliance typo in the first place because the system literally won't allow data to be routed in a non-compliant way.
That is spot on. It transforms compliance from a periodic, painful audit into a continuous operational capability.
A continuous capability. That makes a lot of sense.
And that continuous governance is no longer just a nice to have, by the way. It is an absolute necessity as businesses rush to deploy generative AI.
Oh, because the regulatory risks surrounding AI are escalating so rapidly.
Precisely. Industry clouds operationalize responsible AI governance. They provide clear model lineage.
Meaning you can trace exactly what data an AI used to make a specific decision.
Exactly. They also enforce automated anonymization of sensitive data before it ever reaches an AI prompt.
Because the consequences of getting AI wrong are severe. I mean, if a company's custom AI chatbot hallucinates and accidentally spits out a customer's private financial data or, private medical history to the wrong user,
That company isn't just dealing with a bad public relations day.
no, they are facing catastrophic regulatory fines and a total loss of consumer trust. The AI absolutely has to be kept in a heavily guarded sandbox.
And the industry cloud platform ensures that any AI feature you deploy is forced to operate within the exact same compliance guardrails as your foundational data storage. It just cannot step outside those boundaries.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of time on the technical mechanisms, the what and the how. I want to shift our focus to the strategic why.
The bottom line impact.
Exactly. If you implement this built-in compliance, these sector-specific data models, and the modular architecture, what is the actual bottom line impact? Why should a business leader commit to this shift?
The primary driver is unprecedented operational efficiency. By utilizing standardized workflows and automated security controls, a business dramatically reduces manual engineering rework.
So your IT teams are no longer spending thousands of hours on, basic plumbing.
Exactly. They aren't stuck figuring out how to securely connect an inventory database to a customer portal.
Yeah.
They just leverage the pre-built template.
Which has to compress the time to value for any new initiative.
Dramatically, projects that used to take a year can be deployed in weeks.
I am thinking about risk profile again, though. Say you're looking at a major European financial institution. Regulators will absolutely not allow them to put their crown jewel transactional data onto a generic, shared public cloud server.
Right. Data residency laws in Europe are incredibly strict.
So does adopting an industry cloud platform force a highly regulated business into an all-or-nothing public cloud model?
Not at all, and that is actually a crucial strategic advantage. The platforms are designed for hybrid and multi-cloud realities.
Meaning you can split it up?
Yeah, because very few enterprise-level organizations exist entirely in the public cloud. An ICP allows you to maintain a hybrid setup. You can keep your highly sensitive, heavily regulated data on-premise, secured behind your own physical firewalls.
Okay, and what about the heavy lifting?
Meanwhile, you can seamlessly push heavy, non-sensitive compute workloads, like running a massive data analytics simulation out to public cloud platforms during periods of peak capacity.
Oh, I see.
The multi-cloud governance tools ensure that data residency laws are respected, keeping European data explicitly on European servers without sacrificing the computing power of the broader cloud.
That's a really elegant solution. So when it is time to take this strategy to the board and actually secure funding, how are we measuring success? What are the specific metrics the guide suggests to prove the return on investment of an industry cloud migration?
The source material provides a very clear scorecard for ROI. First, you measure deployment frequency. You track how much faster your teams are rolling out new features compared to the legacy system.
Okay, deployment frequency. What's next?
Second, you monitor mean time to recovery, or MTTR. When a system failure occurs, how quickly does the standardized architecture get you back online?
Which is critical for minimizing downtime.
Absolutely. Third, you quantify the explicit reduction in manual operational IT work. And finally, you evaluate the total cost of ownership over a multi-year horizon.
And the total cost of ownership goes down because you are shifting away from the massive capital expenditure of building bespoke systems, right?
Yes, and you're avoiding the endless maintenance costs of keeping custom code alive. You are paying for predictable, packaged capabilities.
That is a highly compelling business case. So let's talk about execution. How do you actually deploy this roadmap without bringing daily operations to a grinding halt?
The guide breaks this down into a really practical step-by-step process. Step 1 is assess.
Assess. Okay, what does that involve?
Assessment is about establishing your baseline before you even look at a vendor. You have to map out your core business workflows. You need to identify your strict data residency requirements and your exact compliance obligations.
So you have to know exactly what you need before you go shopping.
Right. The goal is to take those abstract business requirements and tie them to concrete technical service level agreements, or SLAs.
And the SLAs are basically the contractual guarantees of uptime and performance you will demand from a platform.
Exactly.
That leads directly into step 2, which is evaluate.
Ah.
This is the vendor shortlisting phase. The text emphasizes that you need to look for a partner with proven industry IP.
Yes. You don't want a vendor who is learning your sector on the fly. You want someone who already understands the intricacies of your ecosystem.
And who possesses the Gen AI capabilities to future-proof your operations.
Precisely. Once you have your partner, you move to step 3, plan.
Okay, what's the strategy there?
The most critical advice here is to avoid the big bang approach. You never want to flip a single giant switch and just hope the new system works.
Because if it fails, everything fails.
Right. The article advocates defining migration waves. You transition your systems over in strategic, isolated phases.
Ah, so this relentlessly protects your daily operations. Because if one wave encounters an issue, the rest of the business remains insulated.
Exactly. You mitigate the risk.
The guide also explicitly warns about some dangerous pitfalls during this evaluation and planning phase. It strongly cautions against choosing a vendor solely based on the initial price tag.
Oh, choosing the cheapest platform up front is a classic trap.
Why is that?
Because a bargain platform that requires your team to perform excessive custom coding just to make it fit your business will end up costing vastly more in engineering hours and maintenance over the long run.
So the initial savings are totally wiped out.
Exactly. You also have to carefully scrutinize vendors who make massive marketing claims about AI and security but lack clear, auditable compliance evidence.
Or fail to offer a robust integration ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because if they can't connect easily to your existing tools, they're really just selling you another isolated silo.
Exactly. You don't want another silo.
Which brings us to the golden rule of this entire modernization journey. Start small.
Yes, start small.
You execute short, highly measurable pilot programs to validate that the integration patterns actually work with your specific data.
And you establish a center of excellence within your organization. That's a dedicated team that learns the platform's intricacies inside and out.
And then you only begin to scale the deployment across the wider company once that foundation of knowledge is rock solid. It is entirely about de-risking the process.
It requires a highly disciplined, methodical approach. But that discipline is the only way to ensure these incredibly powerful cloud platforms actually deliver the operational speed and security they promise without disrupting the core business that pays the bills.
Let's recap the strategic ground we've covered today. We started by examining a massive market shift, looking at a projected 70% adoption boom of industry clouds over the next few years.
A huge shift.
Yeah. And we unpack the mechanics of how these platforms bundle everything from raw infrastructure to sector-specific data models out of the box, effectively serving as an automated, built-in compliance spell checker.
And finally, we mapped out a methodical, wave-based roadmap to help you navigate this transition without risking your daily operations.
Right. It's a lot to take in.
It is, and the scale of this technological shift is enormous. Honestly, it points to a rather provocative reality for the near future.
What do you mean?
Well, as these vertical cloud platforms effectively standardize the absolute best practices of entire industries, high-end IT infrastructure is going to become a baseline commodity.
Oh, interesting. So everyone will have the best tools.
Soon, everyone in your sector will have world-class, hyper-efficient infrastructure right out of the box. Therefore, your competitive advantage will no longer be determined by who has the best servers or the most robust data centers.
Because the playing field will be leveled.
Exactly. Your competitive edge will rely entirely on the unique human ingenuity, the proprietary algorithms, and the creative customer experiences you're able to build on top of that standardized foundation.
Wow. That reframes the entire technological landscape. It takes the focus away from maintaining the plumbing and puts it squarely back on human creativity and strategic ideas.
That's the real takeaway here.
We have covered a lot of ground today, and I want to explicitly thank you for tuning in to the SmartKeys podcast. To ensure you stay ahead of the curve as these enterprise technologies continue to evolve, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast right now.
There is always more to learn on this front.
Absolutely. Furthermore, we have really only scratched the surface of the technical nuances here. I strongly urge you to read Felix Römer's full Ultimate Guide. The direct link to the article on smartkeys.org is waiting for you right now in the show notes. Take a look and keep thinking about what unique value you are going to build on top of your new foundation.